And we are live with this episode of Unicorn Chef. Hi, everyone. I am the UK host for Unicorn Chef, Amy Stokes Waters. I am the CEO of the Cyber Escape Room Company. And today, with me in the kitchen is Michael Sage. Hi, Michael.
Hello, Amy.
There is also a 7-year-old floating around who might interrupt us at any point. So today, guys, we are talking about gatekeeping in the cybersecurity industry, as well as cooking a very, very nice beef teriyaki stir fry, which I'm very excited about because I am starving. So, Michael, gatekeeping in the cyber industry, as we are on the Unicorn Chef podcast, how about we start talking about unicorn job descriptions?
Yeah, so unicorn job descriptions, like there's just, I think it's at both ends of the spectrum at the moment, to be honest. So about 6 months ago, I saw an advert for the CISO role at the UK Cabinet Office that wanted centuries of experience and both technical, architectural, cultural knowledge, and it was paying like 65 grand a year. And obviously, you're not going to get the right kind of candidates for that. But I think probably what's more relevant to what we're talking about today is at the other end, where you have junior roles that are marked as junior that just aren't junior roles. You've got asking for 5 years of experience. I think there was one I saw the other day that asked for like 3 years of experience in a technology that had only existed a year.
Yeah.
And I think, recruiters can only do what they're told. They don't drive the market. The market should be driven by those who are in the industry, who understand what they're actually asking, because otherwise, it affects your reputation as well. So, if you're a hip young tech company and you're putting out these
Michael,
junior
how
roles,
much did it hurt you to say the word hip then?
it
Hip.
did hurt a lot. Yeah, if you've got bean bags and ball pulls, and you're asking for technology that hasn't existed, that's a kind of failing on one. It doesn't show that it shows that you're not reading the job description properly that you're putting out that's got your brand on it. And
Yeah.
two, I don't think it reflects what you want to reflect of your company. So
But I look at these job descriptions and I always think people who like these unicorn job descriptions, I can kind of see how they come about because I guess you employ someone as a junior, like your first ever cyber hire, I guess, in your company. You employ them and you don't know what kind of level of knowledge you're expecting them to have because it's the first hire, right? So they come in, they then work in that job for, I don't know, a year, 2 years, whatever. And then they either perhaps move on somewhere else. But when you're trying to fill that role, which you still maybe in your head consider as your junior or entry level cyber hire, by the time that person's had 2 years experience in that role, they've obviously gained so many skills. But when you're hiring, you don't want to go back to ground zero again on the skill set. So you don't want to be hiring another entry level person. So
no,
you end up writing the job description based on the work that the person who's leaving was doing rather than what they actually started with. So I can kind of see how the job roles kind of get confused. But I mean, in big businesses, when you see it, I just think it's like what you were saying. The cabinet office it's for want of a better word, fucking mental.
yeah, it's just lazy as well because it just shows that no one's really checked it. And I think what's really interesting about that role maturity that you're talking about is that I think it wasn't that long ago that you needed to be 5, 10 people big before you consider making your first IT hire, let
Mm.
alone a security hire. And I
Mm.
think that world's changed, and you do see there's certainly a lot of unicorn sysadmins out there who are supporting businesses um, that perhaps do need two IT staff now. And I think,
Well, I know I've worked at a business that had like 600 people and he had 3 IT staff.
yeah, Yeah, and
the amount of pressure that's put on them, and there was no cyber staff; it was just IT staff, so they had to cover that whole range. And I'm sure there's lots of people out there that would say cyber is IT or IT is cyber or whatever way around it is, but it's not, is it?
No, and I think the traditional IT function has kind of changed really significantly because, you know, I don't know many businesses that don't use cloud productivity now. So I don't know many businesses that aren't in, say, Office 365 or Google Workspace. So I think that traditional infrastructure first line support role probably doesn't exist in the same way. I'd imagine it's more, you know, more service desk, and actually entry level cyber is much more important to a business now.
Yeah.
Because you haven't got all that tin anymore. And I think, you know, I can only speak from the Microsoft perspective because it's the only one I'm familiar with, but their kind of dashboards and security features that come with Office 365 are, you know, infinitely better than the old control panels you used to get for antivirus, for example. So I think, you know, if you're a small business, you probably only have an entry level person once, don't you? Which, going back to what you were saying, you know, actually, once you've had a junior in who's matured your organization, actually, you're not looking for a junior anymore. You're just looking for
an IT person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So, total sidebar. Do you want to talk to us about what we're cooking this evening?
Yeah. So this is a recipe that we kind of came up with in lockdown when, you know, you'd spent all day in the garden and you just wanted something quick to eat. There's only a few ingredients, and you throw it all in a pan and then you eat it.
Nice. That's what we like. Easy peasy cooking on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go on. What are we doing first?
Well, I think just before we get into that, so I don't forget and we both don't get told off, I just wanted to take a sec to talk about the charity.
Oh yeah, good point. Good shout. Well done. Star will be sending lots of love your way for remembering.
So it's an American-based organization. It's the Human Rights Foundation, but in particular, I think it's a campaign they're running and have been running since 2016 about sending your used flash drives into them. So they're after any flash drives that are 4 gigs or greater.
Presumably empty ones without all of your work personal data in them.
Well, we'll get to where they're going to in a minute. But yeah, you definitely want to make sure they haven't got any corporate sensitive data on them. So, you know, maybe buy new and send them. But so since 2016, they've been running this Flash Drives for Freedom campaign. And what it is they take new or old flash drives and micro SD cards, and they load a load of media onto them. So things like documentaries, soap operas, basically information and media about what's going on in the rest of the world. And then they drop them into North Korea. So
not for Kim Jong Il?
Yeah.
Yes.
And so they've dropped hundreds of thousands of them so far, but they're always looking for new drives. So you can either post them in, or if you're in America, you can pop in and donate them. But it's basically to help get the message out that there is a world outside of North Korea, and to show them that you know, there is a world outside, and that perhaps they're being indoctrinated. So it's a really good cause. And I think, you know, for the IT people who are watching, who've got a drawer full of promotional USB sticks that they know they're never going to use, send them over, send them in.
I'm sure I have about 75 of them upstairs. So yes, I am happy to do that. I'm assuming there's a website that we go to.
Yes, there is. So the website is flashdrivesforfreedom.org.
Excellent. So
and that's got all the information on there.
There we go. Flashdrivesforfreedom.org, everyone. Cool. Okay, let's crack on with some cooking, and then we'll talk a bit more about gatekeeping.
Okay, so let's start with the prep then. So take your pepper or bell pepper.
I have my pepper.
And we just want to cut that into reasonably chunky strips that can then...
I found a hack on YouTube the other week because I'm sad and look at things like that. Whereas if you slice the bottom of the pepper, then you can just split it off the top of it, and it's magic, and the seeds come out without a big fucking mess.
Oh man, I've just started cutting mine. That's a really good tip.
That is a really good tip. There you go. Follow me for more cooking hacks. No, seriously, don't, because I don't like cooking. Well, I do like cooking, clearly, because I'm doing this podcast, but I don't cook a lot for myself. So, okay, strips of pepper done.
Yeah. And then if you want to take your spring onion.
Yeah.
And just top and tail them.
Assuming, because you live with just your wife, this recipe is for 2 people, right?
Yes. Well, I mean, I'm not going to say I can eat it all on my own.
Fair. Okay, pepper chopped. So, it's really, do you know what I've discovered? It's really hard to chop things and think about what you want to say at the next time, because I'm trying to think about not chopping my own fingers off with the really fucking sharp knife that I'm holding. Okay, so we've talked about unicorn job descriptions.
Yep.
We're going to kind of move on to that, talk a bit more about gatekeeping. So what do you think gatekeeping kind of actually looks like in real life? So we hear the word gatekeeping quite a lot, and I think it can mean it can mean different things to different people. But for you, kind of what do you think gatekeeping kind of looks like?
I think gatekeeping in its most kind of broadest definition is the exclusion of either an individual or a group of people just because they don't conform or
I mean, I can give you. I'll tell you what I found with gatekeeping, because obviously my background's not mega techie, to say the least. I get told a lot of the time that I'm not part of cyber. So I've literally had CISO say to me, "You're in cyber because you're just in sales." I'm like, "But I'm selling cyber." So your gatekeep. The industry's already small. We already hear. I mean, this is a whole other podcast, the fucking skills gap, right? But we already hear that there's a skills gap. So the fact that people want to gatekeep access to an industry that's quite clearly got problems with resourcing blows my brain.
Yeah, and I think it's that kind of exclusionary attitude that stops people moving into the industry in the first place as well. I think one of the kind of driving forces behind IT in general has always been that that you have to be able to accept change and drive change. And actually, when you're gatekeeping, you're immediately excluding those new ideas. So you say that you're in sales, but I'm sure you've got experiences in things that I haven't got that would...
I was looking on LinkedIn earlier, and someone was saying that marketing and cybersecurity and security awareness have got a lot in common. And I was like, yeah, they're pretty much exactly the same skill set.
Yeah.
I'm basically manipulating people into doing something. Marketing, I'm manipulating you into buying something. So buy my shit. But in security awareness training, I'm manipulating you into learning some stuff. And whether we call it manipulating or social engineering or persuasion or whatever, the same thing. It might have slightly different connotations, but you can.
And the other thing is, when we're talking about cybersecurity in particular and security in general, do you think that hackers are all, have all got degrees or?
Yes, they go to Hacker University. How dare you?
Yeah. So they go off to Hacker University. You know, these are people who potentially have got.
Sorry, by the way, what am I doing with these spring onions? I've chopped the ends of them off.
I'll just cut them nice and small. They'll go in towards the end.
Okay, perfect.
I
actually do feel like I'm on Saturday Kitchen because I have like a whole chopping board in front of me of like little prepared bits. And I'm going to be the Ollie Smith of this podcast. And I'm just going to do the wine pairing. So today, everyone, we've got a nice Côte de Ron, Calvé Côte de Ron. If anyone wants to know which wine I would recommend to go with a nice beef teriyaki. That was the Saturday Kitchen bit, Michael.
Yeah. I'm pairing mine with some apple and blackcurrant cider.
Oh, good shout. Good shout.
I can't even remember what we were talking about now.
Well, gatekeeping in cyber and excluding people from.
Oh yeah. You know that it's like when we used to recruit for service desk posts and things. Actually, do you know what? The technical stuff you can learn.
Yeah, I always think that. I think I can. I mean, I'm not techie, and I pick shit up all the time about that's technical. I think it's much harder to teach people the soft skills that go along with it.
Exactly. You know, you can't teach someone. You know if you meet someone whether they're going to fit within your company culture, and actually, that's in my mind that's infinitely more important than what technical skills they have, because actually the industry moves so fast that technical skills are going to be irrelevant probably by the time they start anyway.
Yeah, well, I always think it's like when hackers talk about, oh, I did this hack like 20 years ago, and I'm like, mate, that's amazing, but that technology is so old now that you couldn't do it again because it doesn't even fucking exist.
No, and so I think that, you know, attitude are far more important than skill than technical skills, and I think
it's like university degrees. I always think I mean, talking about gatekeeping, when companies that are hiring require a degree in like a technical subject, I'm like, but what do you think they've learned at university? Do you think they've learned the cutting edge technology at university, or do you think it's actually better to employ someone who's had hands-on experience, whether that's through doing their own labs or through, I don't know, an apprenticeship or something like that? Surely they've got more experience with current technology than anyone that's done a uni degree. Not through any, I'm not saying don't do a degree, and I'm not saying a degree shit. I'm saying the academic system, as well, in the UK for definite, doesn't keep up with the pace of change with technology. So you can't possibly be studying the latest thing.
No, and I think, you know, I think back to, I mean, I did a national diploma because I didn't do A levels, and so this was in the 99 2000, and the course that we were doing still taught us assembly language and COBOL and Pascal, and you know they were already a generation out of use, and I get that, you know, that piece of paper shows that I have that
definite transferable skills.
Yeah, have those transferable skills, but you could work that out through a technical test anyway. You know, when you give people technical tests, it's not about looking at whether they know how to do the task, it's about their approach to that task. And I think, you know, yeah, and I think the other thing we suffer from is there are definitely cliques within the industry as well. And I think, you know, I think especially for people coming into the industry, you know, if your mentor happens to be in one group, then it's unfortunately likely that you wouldn't get employed by someone in the other group. Yes. You know, and that's tragic, really. You know, like you said, we could talk about whether there's a skills gap or not for forever, But I think
literally forever.
yeah, you can't. These people can't say there's a skills shortage and a skills problem if they're discounting people because they happen to have joined with someone else on LinkedIn before they connected with them. And I think, that's a pretty disgusting way of behaving, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that is quite prevalent, and that by itself could be a whole other podcast, but we won't we won't go into that right now. How about we actually put some food in a pan? I mean, I know this is a very quick recipe. So we've done the prep. So we've done the peppers, we've done the spring onions, we've got the beef should be already chopped up.
Yep.
Got the teriyaki sauce. So let's go. What we're doing first?
Let's go. So put a bit of oil in your pan.
Okay.
Put any other kind of seasoning bits that you want in there. So I put a bit of garlic in mine, and a bit of chili.
Nice.
Some chili flakes.
I've got a bit of ginger just because I really love ginger.
There's a whole range of kind of lazy stuff that you can get.
I think I've actually got 9 of them in my on the side here, but yes, I like the lazy ginger. I think it's
they do. Lazy ginger's really nice. The lazy chili we put in nearly everything. We've actually got some fresh garlic today from one of the farms down the road.
That is bougie. I am impressed.
So you want to let the pan get quite hot, which on my hob will take about a week and a half.
So while we are waiting for the pans to heat up, then, do you think gatekeeping in cyber? Do you think it comes from insecurity rather than necessity? So is it people protecting their own jobs or their own ego rather than protecting the industry? So we talk about like people saying we could professionalize the industry and require everyone has a degree and that kind of thing, but there's the main people in cyber, or the main I guess like the legends of cyber, I don't see any of them having a degree in cybersecurity. I'm pretty sure they're all self-taught. So what do you think about
that? I think it goes back to that thing, doesn't it? You don't have hackers with degrees. These people who are prepared to break the law, they're not worried about bits of paper. And I think it comes back to the aptitude thing. But I think the reason that the industry's gate-kept is because we have there's a lot of superhero personalities in the industry.
Yeah.
I stopped Sainsbury's getting hacked because I worked 472 hours a day. No one else could do that. And I think in part it does come across, the gatekeeping comes across because we have these superheroes and superhero complexes and stuff. But I think, it's not just about, I think the gatekeeping, interestingly, isn't just about kind of skills and things. I think it can be gendered. It can be, the industry that we work in, the IT industry was started by women. And I sometimes think that we massively forget that, the early programmers, the early system administrators, the early developers were all women.
Yeah, we were just talking about this before the podcast podcast. Saying people like Katherine Johnson or Admiral Hopper, or go back really far and talk about like Ada Lovelace or whatever. But yes, there was a lot of very influential women, and excluded out of it now is bizarre.
The first business system that was run by Lions cafes was all the developers were women, and and so it just seems weird. But I think there is an element of I don't know, it's become a male domain, and now it's all a bit chest thumpy, and I think that puts people off as well. Right, my oil's up.
My oil. Also, I can hear the sizzle. What's going on?
Beef.
Beef. Okay. We've got the beef. Well, mine didn't get quite as good a sizzle as yours. That was much better. Oh no, it's going now. We're good. I can hear it.
And you just want to get that really lightly browned, not
Yeah.
not very cooked.
Yeah, I don't like overdone beef.
No.
I'm very excited for this. Are you struggling to talk and walk at the same time?
I know I really do need to learn to talk and walk at the same time.
That's funny.
So yeah, I think you've got these education snobbery, and
Yes.
like you said, I don't think traditional education's the route out of that. And I also don't think that an industry qualification's potentially the right thing either.
Hmm.
Um,
No, because I think the industry. I mean, that's again, that's a whole other podcast. The industry qualifications. There's someone benefiting from you getting that qualification. The certification body is benefiting from it. So
yeah, and you end up with rival things as well. So once that's brown, chuck in the peppers,
okay.
and then give it another quick. And I think you end up with rival ones as well, don't you? And that creates more gatekeeping and more cliques.
Yeah, like I've got CEH rather than I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And it has it, and it does lock you into vendors as well, and we don't want that.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought. There's loads of stuff around gatekeeping because, like, if you think when I first started working in IT, I worked for a Microsoft company, like Microsoft CRM company, and then I worked in Microsoft 365, and I've been working for about 8 years, and I was like, fuck, if I don't switch jobs to do something else now, I'm going to be stuck only knowing Microsoft when there's like loads of other shit out there that isn't. I'm not dissing Microsoft, but I mean, I don't just want to be the Microsoft lady.
No.
Because I've not even worked for Microsoft. I've just worked for Microsoft partners. So I don't. Yeah. So I think you can kind of get stuck with that as well.
Right, your pepper should be looking good about now.
Mm-hmm.
So next thing is you want to do your microwave rice about now.
Okay. I'm on low carb. I'm on low carb, so I'm leaving the rice out. I'm just going for the
Just
steak.
pretend you're doing microwave rice then.
I will pretend. Oh, here we go. It's my microwave. Done. Ding.
And you want to be putting in your teriyaki sauce about now as well.
Okay, cool. I went for Wagamama's teriyaki sauce because I absolutely. This is if Wagamama's want to sponsor this podcast, that would be great. I fucking love Wagamama's. It also happens to be my daughter's favorite restaurant as well, which is great because it means that we get to go there all the time.
Good times.
Yes. I put mushrooms in with mine because I really love mushrooms and I wasn't having the rice, so I've got to wait for mine to cook a bit more.
That's what's nice about stir fry, though. You can throw whatever you got.
Yeah, I just really hate them stir fry bags because I don't like bean sprouts. And I can never ever find one that's not got bean sprouts in. So I end up doing it like this way. But then you end up buying a load of vegetables and then throwing half the veg out because you've not eaten it. You're not eating the rest of it for the week.
Once that's looking nearly done, you want to throw your spring onions in for the last kind of 30 seconds or so.
Okay, cool. And I'm assuming you're going to show us what your pan looks like at the end so we can all see whether we've done it right or not.
Yep.
Please. Ooh, that stir fry sauce smells so good. Teriyaki is my favourite stir fry.
Yeah, it's a really good flavour.
I've genuinely got no idea what's actually like the base ingredients of it. Like I wouldn't know how to make it if I had to like start
I
doing
think
my
that'd be one of those things though that if you learn how to make it, you might not enjoy it as much, or you just eat it all the time.
Yeah, fair. That's a good point.
Right, and that should now be done.
Let's have a look. Is it looking good?
It's looking good.
Mine was. Oh, nice. Good work. You feel like James Martin right now?
I do.
You didn't even have to put one in the oven and pull it out later on in the episode and pretend that you were going to cook the one that you just put in either. So, that's good. So to finish off, as I'm sure you're hungry and want to go eat your dinner, what do you think a good job advert looks like, and how can you avoid gatekeeping when you're hiring?
So I think a good job advert describes what you're actually looking for. I think if there is a particular product or partner that you always work with, I do think it's worth putting it in there. If you're a Microsoft house, then say you're a Microsoft house. Kind of don't put like generic stuff down. Don't say needs to be proficient at reading logs if what you mean is needs to be proficient in reading Microsoft logs, because you'll just scare people off, and I think you'll end up with the wrong people applying, and it'll waste everyone's time.
Yeah, but then do you not think if you just say Microsoft logs, and people who just have a generic skill of being able to do that would be scared off by, it's got to be specifically Microsoft, so surely that's more gatekeeping.
I think it's about not wasting people's time. So actually, rather than putting it in the job advert, why not describe what you use? Because if you say we have a Microsoft environment and we're after someone to come and work in our SOC, for example, putting that your Microsoft environment will either appeal to someone or won't. You don't want to waste your time or their time if they're entirely comfortable in a Linux ecosystem and don't want to change.
Yeah, I guess the key thing is if they don't want to change, but I guess having that looks, what have you put on top of that? The sesame seeds. That looks almost professional.
I know, right?
I'm jealous. I've not got. I think I've got some black sesame seeds in the cupboard. I'm not
gonna lie. Sophie told me to do that.
Did she? To make it look a bit better.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So and I think when it comes to salary and stuff, you need to be realistic. I think if the Cabinet Office had said, look, we want a CISO for 1 day a week or 1.5 days or 2 days a week, and it can be remote, and we'll pay 60 grand a year, I think they'll have got some really good candidates. They'll have got candidates who are perhaps.
Well, it'd have been cheaper to get a VC in than it would have been.
Yeah.
National insurance and shit on a 1.5 day.
Yeah, but you could potentially get someone who's wanting to leave a high pressure environment, who comes with loads of industry knowledge. Yeah. I know that working in the public sector in Essex, we certainly get a lot of our applicants are people who've worked in London for 10 years, potentially financially comfortable, and they want to maybe give something back a little bit. And I think, if you pitch the roles right and you pitch the hours right and the flexibility right, you can get some really good things.
Yeah.
And I think at the other end of the market, actually, what you should be saying is, I tell you what, why don't we run an apprenticeship scheme? There are loads of brilliant apprenticeship providers out there. We have them. We use them all the time at the council, and you work on that. You adapt your business to work on the assumption that a person's only going to be there for 3 years. So you bring them in, they do their 3 years, they learn something, you get really good value out of them, and then they cycle out. And it doesn't cost you a lot, but it does mean you need to change the way that you view the jobs that you're advertising. You've got to be thinking this is a 3-year placement. What we tend to do is if we're doing more than one.
I have cooked my dinner. Look at that.
Yes. You'll maybe stagger them, so you have one starting 1 year and then one starting 2 years later, and then you've got this repeatable business model, and you don't have to break the bank by going for senior level people or mid people when perhaps you haven't got the budget for it. And I think
and I think if you use vendors for the bits that you struggle with, if you've not got the OPEX to be able to hire someone full time, then you have the odd bit of CapEx that comes in, and that's why you just use them. You use that for projects that you do.
Yeah, and I think just one final thing on the apprenticeships is I think that a lot of businesses think that apprenticeships is all about school leavers. And that's not what the apprenticeship program is anymore. You have still got the school leavers, but we have graduate apprentices, we have master's level apprentices, and it's about that continuous development for your staff, and it doesn't really come at a lot of cost to the business either.
Yeah, I think maybe it's a reframing of the word apprentice, because apprentice, like you said, it does sound like school leaver, but I think you can be an apprentice at like a skilled industry like cyber. A school leaver probably isn't appropriate to do an apprenticeship in that, because
No.
you need to have a level of understanding around IT. So maybe you've done, I don't know, even just an A level in IT and maybe a degree in IT, but then moving into cyber, you could do an apprenticeship in that to get grounding in it, but without commanding the salary that you will eventually be able to command once you finish your apprenticeship.
Yeah, and you could come out the other end of it. You could work for someone for 4 years and come out the end of it with a like a master's in cybersecurity from an organisation that's maybe affiliated with a certain university, but you're ticking that degree box, you're ticking it for yourself, and it's not costing you anything except time.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's cool. Well, thank you, Michael, for joining us. Do you want to just give us a quick reminder again about your charity for the week?
Yep. So it's Flash Drives for Freedom. They're asking for flash drives over 4 gigs that they can then load up with Korean soap operas and music and world events. I think they also I remember reading that they put the Korean version of Wikipedia on there as well.
Nice.
And then what they do is they drop them into North Korea so that people can understand what's going on in the wider world.
Excellent. Well, hopefully people can get involved in that. And we will be back next week again with another episode of Unicorn Chef. Thank you very much. Bye.